Hey everyone, it's Brooks Kubik and John Wood, and we're back with another episode of Dinosaur Radio. Frankly, I don't even know what the episode number is. We'll figure that out later. But we've got some catch up we wanted to do, and I wanted to start by addressing something that is going to save me answering a whole lot of emails, and it's this. I've been doing a lot of videos where I've been training outside, often at the beach at Fort Worden State Park here in Port Townsend. And because it's winter now and it's really cold and wet and windy out there, I'm usually wearing this particular hoodie, which says, I think you can see it, York Barbell Club. And it's got the York lifter modeled on Szymanski. Doing a split snatch. And I get question after question after question, Brooks, where can I get this sweatshirt? Or where can I get this hoodie? And the answer, unfortunately, is I got this one from John 10 years ago, 15, a long
10 years
time,
ago.
yeah, a long time ago. And unfortunately, you don't carry them anymore.
No, we got those directly from York, and it was a limited edition item back then. It's unfortunate, but that's just how it goes. But
Okay.
I'm glad you're
Well,
obviously getting a lot of use out of them now.
well, I'm getting tons of use out of this. But that's the bad news. The good news is that if people want really cool hoodies, t-shirts, sweatshirts, all kinds of stuff with strongman logos, wrestlers, boxers, famous athletes from the past, famous equipment, special equipment, old-time bodybuilders, strongmen, anyone, anything, dinosaur training stuff, anything. John, where do they go to get it?
That would be retrostrength.com.
And how many things do you have available at Retro Strength now?
Right now, it's up over 400. It rotates because sometimes different types of clothing becomes not available, or maybe there's other issues. But in any event, the designs and the different types of clothing or mugs or whatever, everything's there. And we've been having a lot of fun bringing back a lot of old brands from the past. And so we've got Billard Barbell, we've got the Jackson Barbell Company. What are some of the other ones? The types of things that whether they had actual clothing back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, I don't know, because and then like more likely not, because that just wasn't a thing back then. So, but we're able to create hoodies with the Milo Barbell Company on it or something like that. And we have some unique designs that mimic the way designs looked back then, but whenever possible, I try to take the original marks from those particular companies and recreate the materials.
So if anyone watching this is interested in some really cool retro strongman strength training, iron game stuff, Retro Strength is the place to go. And as John said, there are 400 or more items available there, but there's a search function. Mm-hmm. So you can search for dinosaur training, dinosaur, Brooks Kubik, fill in the blank with famous strongmen. Sandow will pull something up. Carl Gotch will pull something up, I believe. Frank Gotch, George Hackenschmidt, various famous bodybuilders of the past. Just start plugging stuff in and you'll come up with all kinds of cool stuff. And then you can do what I do, which is walk around wearing something like this. And every once in a while, someone will come up and say, York Barbell Company, I know just where that is. It's in Pennsylvania. And I'm like, that's right. So it's a lot of fun. So just wanted to mention that because, as I said, I just get so many questions from people who see this when when I post a video on social media. They just love this.
That's amazing. Brooks, did you know that York peppermint patties are also made in York, Pennsylvania?
I knew that. I knew that. And I'm trying to think how I knew it, if I read it in Strength and Health. Just not sure, but I wonder why it was that Hoffman didn't do some kind of special deal where he was selling high protein peppermint patties.
Yes.
So, John, let's talk training a little bit. What are you doing that would qualify as new, different, or interesting for listeners?
Probably nothing that would qualify as new or different. My training is probably the most boring training in existence. I change very little. I like to do essentially the same thing over and over and over again and just focus on improving every time. There is a little bit of variety in what I'm doing, but not a whole lot. I think the real magic happens when you can just sit down and focus on just getting a little bit better every time, and then do that for 50 workouts in a row, and all of a sudden you'll get to levels of performance or development which most people never do because they never stick with something long enough to do that.
That 50 workouts in a row comment is really interesting, because that's one thing that most people never ever do or begin to do. Hit the same workout, making it progressively more difficult, more challenging, improving performance from workout to workout for 50 workouts in a row. And I'm not talking about a 50-day workout challenge where you do the same thing every day for 50 days. I'm talking about, in your case, I think you train twice a week usually?
Somewhere in that range, yeah.
So when you're talking 50 workouts, you're talking about over the course of 20 to 25 weeks, you're putting in 50 high quality progressive workouts, pretty much the same, but the goal is improvement from workout to workout. And at the end of that time, at the end of 50 or 60 or it doesn't have to be 50, but 40 workouts later, 50 workouts later, 60 workouts later, there are some significant changes that you've made in your body, in your strength, in your muscle mass, in your conditioning, whatever you're focusing on. It happens over a period of time, and it happens just as the result of consistent, focused, driven effort, which is a pretty good way to do it. And as you said, a lot of people might find it boring, but it's a really, really good way to get results.
I don't find the results boring. And all of a sudden, when you look in the mirror and you see muscle that wasn't there before, and you're just like, wow, that keeps you going. So to me, there's no such thing as training that works can't be boring, because you're going for those results. But to give you a more specific example, I think it was either in May or June, I decided that I was going to really focus on doing bench press supports, heavy supports. And I have done supports of various sorts for the last 7 or 8 years as a part of the Bone Strength Project, but I had not really focused on the bench press support program. I wanted to see what would happen if I ended up doing that, and that's been a part of my workout since May or June. So we're closing in on Thanksgiving now, so you figure that's been 4, 5, 6 months, somewhere in that range of just consistent training on that movement. And there's other parts of the workout that I'm doing, or other exercises that I'm doing as well, but I wanted to make a point to stick with that and to see what would happen. And as far as I can tell, it's performing at it's accomplishing exactly what I'd hoped to get, because there's been noticeable growth all throughout my upper body. I'm getting like stretch marks when, I'm going to be 44 years old. So it's like, what's going on here? And another weird thing that's happened, and I don't know if this is my mind playing tricks on me or what, but somebody my age starts to get a few gray hairs here and there. But since I've been focusing on the heavy supports, I got a few, but not too many. So it's like, did they disappear? I don't know. I can't say one way or the other, but I think I'm doing pretty well.
That's that's interesting, and it kind of mirrors a basic thought that I have at age 65, which is that strength training and regular physical training, physical conditioning, particularly when combined with a sensible diet, keeps you looking young all the way around.
Mm.
It affects your skin tone, it affects your hair, it affects everything. And you look, feel, move, act much younger than your chronological age.
Mm.
There have been studies that talk about um, strength training will will move your physical age compared to your biological age. In other words, your chronological age. So, you're actually about 20 or 25 years or more younger from a physical point of view than your actual age. So if you're 65, it's really more like you're 40.
Mm.
And that's a huge factor, a huge difference for most people, non-training people, for gosh sake. And I would imagine that if anyone ever studied it, and this is one for the research folks to gear up and give it a try, there's probably some kind of effect about the thickness of your hair, the length of your hair, the color of your hair, when your hair starts turning gray, how gray it becomes. There probably is a tie-in to strength training, to resistance training that no one has thought about. And I say that with confidence because every time they look for a tie-in to strength training or resistance training, they find that it's the best thing in the world. It, in recent years, there's been research that says that resistance training, strength training, guess what, is very good for blood pressure control. Something they never dreamed of. They always thought blood pressure control, you need to do aerobic training. But guess what? Resistance training can have very beneficial effects for blood pressure control. Insulin resistance, insulin control, same thing. They used to say, go out, go jogging, go running, do aerobic training. Guess what? Resistance training works great. There used to be all kinds of recommendations for bone loss, bone density, bone mineralization, strong bones, preventing osteoporosis. People did all kinds of things. Guess what turns out to be the very best thing? Resistance training. Resistance training, strength training, particularly in the legs and lower body, best thing in the world for balance, best thing in the world to help seniors avoid slip and fall accidents. Good old simple basic strength training.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes on and on. The research is coming in. It shocks a lot of health professionals, a lot of medical professionals, and a lot of researchers because there's always been this emphasis on aerobic training, which is great, but strength training, resistance training turns out to be, the real fountain of youth, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Keep it up, you'll be looking 25 in no time.
No, it's fine with me.
So,
well, Brooks, why don't you tell us about your recent training?
well, my recent training, has been kind of interesting. Ever since we moved to Port Townsend, I've started to gravitate more and more to training outside, simply because it's really beautiful here. There are a lot of parks, uh, open places to work out. There's a wonderful state park, Fort Worden State Park, which is 2.5 miles away from where we live. It's got some beautiful beaches, and I just liked going out in the sun and the fresh air and training outside. And so I started to do more and more and more of it. I started by doing isometric work because I could carry isometric resistance bands with me anywhere I went. I just threw them in my backpack. Obviously, you can't take 400 pounds of barbell and plates, but you can take 2 pounds of isometric equipment. So I did that. And then I thought, well, maybe I'm going to try heavy duty resistance bands. So I got a set of heavy duty loop style resistance bands, and I started training with those again because I could carry them anywhere I wanted. So that was pretty good. Then I thought, well, maybe start working some body weight training back into the mix. So I started doing bodyweight training because obviously you need virtually no equipment, maybe something, a tree branch or something to do pull-ups on, or go to a park that has climbing bars or a pull-up bar or something, do pull-ups there. So I started to do that. The next thing, I found that sometimes there were places where there were bars that were perfect for doing things, except they were too thick for pull-ups. So I needed to find some way to do pull-ups on them. And I thought about what to do. I saw adjustable gymnastics rings, portable, lightweight, inexpensive. So I got those, and I carry them with me wherever I go. That lets me go find a tree with a branch where I just throw the gymnastics rings over the branch, set them up. It takes 5 minutes, and then I can do pull-ups, body rows, ring push-ups, variations of those movements, dips, dip supports, pretty much anything that I want to do in terms of ring exercises, I can do anywhere I want. I can carry them with me. So I've been doing that. And another thing, one day I saw a pretty good sized driftwood log that had washed ashore. We have driftwood logs all up and down the beach because this is logging country. They float the logs from where they're cut to where they're milled. Sometimes logs break loose. They get washed down the coast. We actually live on the coast, what they call the Juan de Fuca Strait, that links the Pacific Ocean to the west, to Seattle, and then up to Vancouver in Canada. So the logs wash down here, and we live somewhere called, there's something called Point Wilson, which is where the water coming from the Pacific Ocean, moving east, drops down south, and there's a tremendous twisting, twirling current. And if any logs are caught in it, they get swept around and bang, they end up on the shore. So there's all kinds of great logs. So one day I saw one and I thought, I wonder if I can do something with that. So stood it on end, figured out that I could get it up to my shoulders as if I were doing a front squat. And I did a set of squats with it, and it was really interesting and really good. So then I tried some other logs. Some of the heavier ones, I do more of a Zerper squat. Some of the really heavy ones, I'll stand on end and then wrestle them up on one shoulder, balance them on one shoulder, and do a squat with the log fore and aft, facing to the front and to the back on one shoulder. And I go up and down, do squats that way. And then I throw it off, reposition it on the other shoulder, and do a set with the other shoulder. It's like doing sandbag squats with the sandbag on your shoulder. Mm-hmm. So I've been doing those, having lots of fun with those. And then one day I was holding a log in the front squat and I thought, I wonder what it would be like to try walking with this thing. Would that be good? And what I found is that that is actually a very difficult, challenging exercise, particularly when you're walking in heavy sand. Walking in sand is supposed to burn at least 1.6 times as many calories as walking on a level surface, pavement or grass.
Mhm.
Some people say more than that, 2.2 times to 2.6 times, but it's at least 1.6 calorie burn greater, which means you're expending that much more energy. So, if you're walking with a log that you're carrying, holding up on your shoulders, that's got to be doing some significantly good stuff and much harder than it looks by virtue of doing it in the sand. So I tried that, and lo and behold, that's a really good exercise. And it not only works your legs, including, of course, your calves, ankles, and feet, works your hips, works your core muscles, works your stabilizers, and it works your shoulders and upper back because you're holding the log in position. So it's working them isometrically. So it's a very interesting exercise. So I started doing those. And then I hit on the idea of um, instead of walking with them, running with them, which was really an eye opener, as you might imagine. And that was so much fun. I had a birthday coming up, and Trudy said, "What do you want for your birthday?" And I said, "I want one of those pulling harnesses from Rogue." John, you gave me the idea because you had a Rogue sled that you were using for your wrist rolling exercises, which you've covered in one of your workout videos. So I was thinking, well, okay, Rogue has a mini version of a portable strongman sled. I wonder if they have inexpensive pulling harnesses. I checked them out. They did. They had one for $50. I said, "This is what I want for my birthday." Trudy said, "Done." Ordered it for me. Started doing that in September, in early September. Um, and that's just been tremendous fun. I do regular pulls where I go forward, dragging a log behind me through the sand. And that's no joke because the friction of the log in the sand, I don't know what it adds up to. Um, you'd have to be an engineer to figure it out, but I'll tell you what, it is hard. And so sometimes I pull the log forward and then I reverse it. The Rogue harness has attachment places in the front and on the back of the pulling harness. So I pulled it behind me, walking backwards, which is a completely different exercise, hits the muscles in very unique, interesting ways. Um, Walking backwards is supposed to do really good things for your nervous system. Um, so I thought, well, doing it pulling weight, pulling a log, and again, doing it in sand is probably doing some good stuff. Then I combined them and I did exercises where I would pull a log and carry a log at the same time, sometimes walking and sometimes running. Um, you posted one of those the other day on YouTube as a short. And how many views did you get like in an hour?
Within the first hour, it was viewed over 10,000 times.
Okay. So Brooks at the beach, dragging a log, carrying another log. Apparently we've got 10,000 people out there who want to do the same thing, which I think is pretty cool.
Mhm.
Um, the next thing I did was to start going for longer distances. And I'm now up to doing things like carrying a log, not a heavy log, but heavy enough that it adds up, but carrying a log while I walk on the beach for up to 2 miles,
Mhm.
or dragging a log on the beach for over 2 miles. You called me yesterday. We talked on the phone just before I began my workout. I did, it was at least 2.2 miles, maybe a little bit more. It's hard to get the exact mileage, but I basically dragged a log down the beach, walking forward, and then took a break, caught my breath, turned around, and dragged it backwards. And I went a little bit farther going backwards. So it ended up being, as I said, about 2.2 miles, which is a heck of a lot of steps, a
Mhm.
lot of reps. Again, it's not like you're pulling a huge, massive load as if you were in a strongman contest. It's a much lighter weight, but it adds up in a hurry.
Mhm.
A lot of people do rucking workouts. You're carrying a weight and walking, and they're astonished to find that 30, 40, 50 pounds in a backpack or a rucksack, um, is a whole new ballgame.
Mhm.
And apparently, again, the calorie burn on that is just absolutely tremendous. So I go out and in about 75 to 90 minutes, I may cover 2 miles or more, um, with a heavy log that I'm carrying or a heavy log that I'm dragging. And as near as I can compute the calorie burn on that, that's a minimum of 800 or 900 calories, and perhaps it gets up to 1,200, maybe more, which is a lot of calories to burn in a relatively short period of time. And certainly is an indication that the muscles are working and you're burning a lot of energy.
Mhm.
Um, I did that yesterday in 44-degree weather with about a 5 or 10 mile an hour breeze coming in off the water, barefoot for half the distance. And then it just got too cold, so I put shoes on. So shoes for half the distance. But I didn't wear this. I had this hoodie with me, but I didn't wear it. It was too hot. I knew I'd get too hot. So I had two light t-shirts on. One was sleeveless, one was a regular t-shirt. And that's all I had on top. I had sweatpants, and that was it. And John, by the time I was done, I was dripping sweat. I mean, I was just absolutely drenched, even though I was doing this in 44-degree weather with a cool breeze. So that's an indication to me that you're burning a lot of calories, a lot of energy, which of course is an indication that there's a lot of muscular effort in play. So I've been doing that. If you're interested in watching it, John, you've posted a lot of videos of these workouts on the YouTube channel. Uh, there's more video on my Instagram channel, on my Facebook page, at my new dinosaur training website, www.dinosaurtraining.com. Uh, Go to the social media page for the links, or go to the home page and you'll find all the Instagram video right there. You can just check it out. But as I said, the YouTube channel has additional longer and perhaps the best footage, the Old Time Strongman YouTube channel.
Mhm.
Um, but I've been having a lot of fun with that. We're now into early November. Winter is here. I don't know how long I'm going to be able to keep doing this, but I'd like to continue to do it at least once a week, preferably twice a week, even through the winter. Um, I'll have to bundle up more, and I probably won't be able to do it barefoot when it's really cold. But just getting out in the cold and the outdoors, I think has some serious benefits. So that's what I'm doing, where I'm doing it, and why I'm doing it. Just in case anybody was interested, and I hope you were. So, um, you and I were talking briefly. I want to close with this, and then we can wrap up. But um, we both think there are some unique benefits to training outdoors.
Mhm.
One of them being that sometimes it's uncomfortable. Can you expand on that?
To me, it's just really a matter of they talk about training your willpower like a muscle. And I think that's a good analogy because if you don't train it, it's going to get weaker. And if you do train it, if you give it a reason to improve or get stronger, it will. And I think training outside, especially in cold weather, is one of those things that you can use to your advantage purely from a mental standpoint because you don't feel like doing it. But then the act of saying, well, I can't get the results unless I put the work in. And you go and you put your shoes on and you get bundled up and then you just go do whatever it is that you're going to do. And you'll get rewarded not just from the results of the workout, but there's certain neurotransmitters, dopamine and other things that your mind is or your brain and various glands are going to secrete just from the satisfaction of having done it when you didn't feel like it.
Mhm.
And that is the type of thing that it's a runner's high kind of a principle. And so once you get that reward, that hormonal reward, that's every bit as valuable as the results of the training itself. You're going to want more of that. You're going to say, hey, whatever this feeling is, however it's coming about, I want more of this. And that's going to compel you to do whatever it is in the next workout. So to me, there's a certain advantage to training outside apart from the actual exercises or sets and reps or whatever it is that you're going to do. I often in Michigan, we get a lot of snow, so I don't do a lot of training outside just because it's just not practical. But I do my garage. I do a lot of training in my garage, which is not heated.
Mhm.
And so I'll go out and do the training, do the rowing machine, and it's probably still on cold winters, real cold winters, it'll get down to below freezing inside. We have to be careful about burst pipes, which unfortunately we've experienced. But I'd say that it's probably um, low, in the low 30s anyway, just because it's not airtight. There's a garage door that there's still some gaps in there, but it's cold. I mean, it's winter in Michigan, so it's still going to be cold in there. But having to go out there and get in a rowing workout when I don't feel like it is a lot of the same. There's a lot of the same principle there from a mental standpoint. And just cardio in general. I mean, really any cardio in general that is vigorous and which you exert a lot of effort is going to give you a lot of the same rewards.
Mhm. I couldn't agree more. You know, everybody who watches this channel is familiar with the Rocky movies, and virtually every Rocky movie has that same back to basics, brutal, roll out of bed at 4 in the morning, smash the alarm clock, get into the sweats, go outside and start running,
Hmm.
uh, workout. And sometimes it's in the snow, um, sometimes it's on the beach, but it's always rocky out there in the natural world, being really uncomfortable and just knocking it out of the ballpark.
Hmm.
We all have that. It's like it's bred into our DNA. We respond to it. And I'm just going to mention one other thing. I've shared this story before, but I want to remind people of it, and I want to share it with people who may not be aware of it. Um, in the 1930s and 1940s, there was a little hole in the wall old school barbell gym in Philadelphia called the South Philly Weightlifting Club. It was on the second floor of a building that housed a machine shop down on the first floor. It was just basically an old garage. And it had no heating, no plumbing, no water, no air conditioning, no electricity. I guess it had electricity, but just for a couple bare naked light bulbs, but nothing else. And it got so cold in the wintertime that the bars, the barbells were ice cold. And they kept one old bar, an Olympic lifting bar. They kept it by an old stove, an old iron stove. And they kept a little wood fire going in the stove. And they put that one bar there. And the rule was when you came in, you could do your warm-ups using that bar that had been by the stove because it was not ice cold. But when you were done with your warm-ups, you had to put it back by the stove for the next guy and go use one of the other bars on one of the lifting platforms and do your lifting there. Okay. It was brutal. Here's the thing. One of the greatest Olympic weightlifters in the history of American weightlifting, John Davis, 6-time world champion, 2-time Olympic gold medal winner, trained at the South Philly Weightlifting Club. So did Frank Spellman, another Olympic gold medal weightlifting champion. At the 1948 Olympics, there were 6 weight classes in Olympic weightlifting. Davis won the heavyweight class. Spellman won the 165-pound class. That's 2 out of 6 weight classes. 33% of the weight classes contested were won by members of the South Philly Weightlifting Club. That little club where it was so cold that they had to put a barbell by an old cast iron stove with a fire in it. Mm-hmm. Think about that for a second. I mean, what does that tell you about training in not merely uncomfortable, but almost brutal conditions? I think it says a lot. Mm-hmm. And I think that if you had had John Davis and Frank Spellman training in a plush, air-conditioned, heated, nice, pretty gym, and you sent them to the Olympic Games, you wouldn't have the same results. I think that kind of difficult training environment has absolutely immeasurable benefits for people. Mm-hmm. So if anyone out there is training at home, training outside, going to the park, going to the beach, training in their backyard, training in their garage, whether it has heat or not, don't for a second think that you're missing out. Don't for a second think it's too cold, can't do it. Guess what? You're training in the perfect place for real results. Mm-hmm. Absolutely guaranteed. And if anyone has comments on that, love to hear from you. Hit the comment button, post. Let's hear your story. Let's share it, shout it from the rooftops. Beat the drum on this one because it is really, really important stuff. And why don't we just leave it right there?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Thanks, John. And thanks, everyone, for listening. Take care.